Welcome to World Talk Brief. Today, we're going to dig into a really simple but honestly a pretty powerful idea. How thinking like an economist might just be a superpower for everyday life.
So let's be honest, when you hear the word economics, what pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's probably these super complex charts, maybe some jargon you can't quite make sense of. It feels like a field that's, reserved for experts. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if economics is actually for all of us?
Because here's the thing, you are already an economist. You just probably don't call yourself one. Every single day, you're running these little cost-benefit analyses in your head. Deciding if that endless shrimp deal is really worth it, that's you thinking about marginal value. Getting to the airport 3 hours early, you're weighing the cost of your time against the risk of missing a flight. Even something like renting out your clothes for some extra cash or saying yes to one more meeting, that's a live-action economic decision.
And there's this new wave of economists who are really trying to make that connection crystal clear for everybody. They argue that economics isn't some scary, daunting subject. It's a practical tool for thinking more clearly. Their whole goal is to give each and every one of us a kind of superpower for making better decisions. A really central figure in this whole movement is Betsey Stevenson, an economist whose career just perfectly captures this mission of making complex ideas accessible to everyone. Just look at her career path. It's this fascinating blend of deep academic theory and real-world practice. She got her PhD from Harvard, sure, but then she went and applied those ideas at the highest levels of the U.S. government. First as the chief economist at the Department of Labor, and then she was on President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors. So she hasn't just studied economics, she has actually used it to shape national policy. But here's what's so interesting. Alongside all that high-level policy work, she has been completely dedicated to public education. She co-authored a major textbook, but she also co-hosts a podcast with a really specific mission: to get these powerful ideas out of the ivory tower and into our daily lives. And that podcast is called, fittingly enough, Think Like an Economist. I love how they describe it. It's designed to be a joyous romp through the big ideas of the field, showing how literally anyone can apply them to make their work, home, and community life a little bit better. Okay, so that's the big promise. But how do they actually do it? Well, let's take a look at one core concept that they make beautifully simple: the idea of economic surplus. Now, economic surplus might sound a little academic, but at its heart, it's a really powerful and simple idea. The podcast defines it as the extra joy that gets created whenever a voluntary trade happens. It's the total win-win for everyone involved. And this example of a simple record sale just makes it crystal clear. So let's walk through this. You've got the seller, right? For them, the record is worth $4. That's their minimum. But it sells at auction for $16. That $12 difference, that's their win. Economists call that producer surplus. Okay, now look at the buyer. They were actually willing to pay up to $25 for it, but they only paid $16. So they got a $9 win, their consumer surplus. And here's the magic part, right at the bottom. This isn't a zero-sum game. The transaction actually created $21 of new value, of total joy, basically, out of thin air. And what's so interesting is that this really clear, accessible approach, it's not just for people casually listening on their commute. It's actually having a measurable impact in formal education too. Just look at this. This is a real syllabus from the University of Texas at El Paso for a Principles of Economics course. And right there, under the course requirements, students are required for their grade to listen to 2 episodes of Think Like an Economist and write about what they learned.
And this shows a really important shift that's happening in education. Tools like this podcast aren't trying to replace the textbooks. They're making them better. They're being used to build that crucial bridge between abstract theory and the real world, which, let's face it, is what helps these concepts actually stick.
And it's not just the professors who see the value here. Students themselves are finding these resources. Here we have a politics and economics student from the London School of Economics saying the podcast is the best for studying, precisely because it takes those big, abstract theories and grounds them in something real.
So, all of this, the podcast, the classroom examples, it all points to a much bigger idea about why making knowledge easy to access really, truly matters.
The whole goal of this movement is really just translation. It's about taking these dense academic phrases like maximizing utility functions under budget constraints and turning them into practical wisdom that we all understand, like making the best choice with what you have. It's about changing Pareto efficiency into the simple goal of finding a deal that makes everybody better off. And the implication here is pretty profound. When you make complex ideas accessible, it's not just about satisfying someone's curiosity. It's about empowerment. A public that can think critically about trade-offs and incentives and costs is just better equipped to make good decisions for their families, for their communities, and for society as a whole.
Which kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. If thinking like an economist really is a superpower, what would happen if everyone had it? How might our collective choices, everything from public policy to our own personal finances, start to change for the better? Subscribe to World Talk Brief for more clear, thoughtful explanations. World Talk Brief, news explained without the noise.